Hello, my name is Anna Canhoto and welcome to this presentation. In today's presentation, I'm talking about budgeting for marketers. This is really a very brief introduction. It's very limited in scope and it's very limited in depth. If you'd like to know more, please leave a comment down on the website, and then maybe I can develop some area if you are interested. But it's not meant at the moment. It's really just meant to provide an overview of key principles of budgeting for marketers. Before I go into the presentation itself, I think we need to address some limitations, some disclaimers. First, this is a primer. It's nothing more than a primer, so please don't make investment decisions based on what I say here. It's just to get you started if you know nothing about budgeting. This presentation is aimed at marketers, so the context, the examples I'm talking about is a marketing program, so specific marketing actions. It is very different from what you would do if you were working in budgeting for capital purposes or government budgeting or whatever. Budgeting has many applications, and what I'm talking about here is relevant for marketers only. Now, in terms of the terms of use, I believe in open access, and really you are very welcome to use these ideas, but there are certain limitations. One, this presentation, it was developed for my students on the Masters in Marketing at Oxford Brookes University. So these students can use the presentation for the purpose of their program. If you're not in the program, you can still use the presentation, any content or any ideas in all or in part, but there are some conditions. I do require that you acknowledge the source, and if you could let me know that you're using it, it would be nice. But I mean, I don't require that. It would just be nice if you left a comment on the blog or sent me an email saying you're using it. If you're using the content or the ideas for non-commercial purposes, then you don't have to pay me anything. Again, you just need to acknowledge the source. If you're using the presentation for commercial purposes, you still do not need to pay me directly, but I require that you make a donation to a charity of my choice. And on the blog, I list the charities that I'm currently supporting, so you can choose either of them, or you can contact me if you want to suggest another charity. So, without further ado, let's talk about budgeting for marketers. This presentation follows roughly a very loose structure. First, we explore a bit why we want to know budgeting, what exactly we're going to focus on, and then how it is done. Remember, it's always with marketers in mind. So let's talk about why then. When I was doing my PhD, I had a Greek teacher who always started new topics by discussing the origin of the words or the concepts that we are discussing. And actually, I think it's a very good habit. Since then, when I address something new, I also like to understand where the word came from, because it really helps understand how it's used and how it works. So the term budget comes from the Latin word bulga. Sorry if I'm not saying it correctly, but it comes from the Latin, and the Latin word means really a little pouch. So when we think about budget, maybe it helps us to keep this idea in mind, and think that the budget really is a container. It will contain money. There is money coming in to this little pouch and money going out. And what we want really is to balance these two. I don't want to end up without money on my pouch, because then I cannot buy anything else and I'll have to close my business. And I don't want up with too much money on my pouch, because I could use it better somewhere. I could invest it somewhere and generate even more revenue. So it's all about balancing. Now, if we don't want to either end up without money or with too much unused money, what we need to identify, what really do we need to think about in terms of budgeting? We need to think about three things. One, what money is going to come in and what money is going to go out. Okay, what are the sources of expenses and what are the sources of revenues? I need to understand when it's going to come in. There is no point if there's going to be a lot of money coming in 2 years' time, but I'll run out of cash before. So when is this money going to come in? And what are the dependencies here? So what is dependent on what? Yes, money may come in, but only if something else happens, right? Or this cost will generate some revenues, but only if this happens or something together happens. So we need to understand also the linkages, because they help us understand the risk. So we can see essentially from this idea that really there are several benefits of budgeting. It's actually a very useful exercise. It helps us understand how much a project is going to cost. So in the terms of marketing programs, if I'm going to launch a new advertising campaign, to inform customers about a new product, how much is it going to cost me, identify what needs to be done for the project to succeed. So it's I can have a great idea, but I also need to book a slot on TV, or I need to check, for instance, that the advert is suitable for, if I'm doing something for children, I don't want to end up spending lots of money on an advert and then realize it falls foul of regulations and I can't show it to children. So I want to understand what needs to be done for the project to succeed, what the risks are, where the risks are, even if I'm going to run out of cash. It also helps me then compare how I'm doing with what I was planning to do. So if suddenly I'm not getting the revenues I was expecting to get, I want to understand what is happening here. Did I lose control of costs? Did I forget to do some sort of investment? Was there a delay? What was happening? It really helps focus discussions and action. So if I'm discussing a broad idea of an advertising campaign with somebody else, when I talk about the small campaign, this may be very different from what the person next to me understands as a small campaign. Whereas if I start putting numbers on paper about how long, what exactly this campaign will entail, how long the adverts are, how many adverts, what kind of adverts, then we can start we will be on the same page. We can start talking about the same things. In the case of marketing, because a marketer will always be proposing specific actions, what we call the marketing program, which could be a new product, start selling through a new channel, have a price, change strategy, whatever, because we'll always be proposing actions. The budgets also help you to understand how we're going to generate shareholder value, and also helps you the argument with other stakeholders in the organization about the need for these actions and how we're going to implement it and achieve the strategy we expect to achieve. Even though there are lots of benefits in budgeting and specifically using budgets in market, there are some limitations as well that I would like to mention just for completeness. First, a budget is only good as the data that goes in. There is this old saying that garbage in leads to garbage out. If you put bad data, if you don't do your research in terms of impacts and task dependencies, your budget will not be, you may end up with, the numbers are meaningless. They really are no good quality. They really don't help you. So do your research properly. Think carefully about how much things really cost. Think carefully about if this action will really generate that sort of benefit. And we're going to talk about what actions are and benefits are in a minute, but just a word of caution at this stage. The other limitation to be aware of is that budgets are all made based on assumptions, right? I'm assuming that this is how much it'll cost, I'm assuming this is how long it will take, and I'm assuming that if I have this advert, then these sales will increase by a certain level. But assumptions are not reality. So we need to make sure that our assumptions are sound. We can discuss with our colleagues, we can test them, but we need to make sure we're really confident in our assumptions. We need to create buffers, so contingency plans. What happens if things don't happen when we want them or on the scale we need them to happen? And we need to revise regularly when we realize that our assumptions are a bit off. Either way, we need to revise the budget and adjust accordingly. So that's briefly the why of budgeting. I would now move to what are we talking about when we talk about budgets? Well, marketers work in an organization, right? And everything we do is in order to achieve the organization's objectives. So the organization's objectives, which could be, for instance, being the market leader, or usually it's about profit or creating shareholder value, something along those lines. They will translate into specific marketing objectives, which will be in terms of being innovative, or brand positioning, whatever. And these inform the development of specific marketing programs, right? So the focus of the marketing budget really is in terms of the marketing programs. We budget for specific programs, a specific set of actions that we take in order to achieve a particular objective. So the marketing budget, they will reflect the benefits and the costs of the marketing program. I will have a series of initiatives that cost some money and some resources, and these will generate a series of benefits. And that's what I'm trying to capture in this document called the budget. The budget requires you to understand what are the benefits you're trying to achieve, what are the actions that you need to pursue in order to deliver those benefits. And here we distinguish between two types of actions: direct actions and enabling actions. Enabling actions are actions that are not directly related to the benefit, but that you need them to happen for the direct one to take effect. And again, I'm going to provide examples very, very soon about this. And so we identify benefits, we identify actions, and then we need to think about the resources needed to deliver those actions. And sometimes it's not resources just in terms of money, how much money you need to pay, but also in terms of using space. So you'll have an office, for instance, what part of so it's fixed cost, of part of the fixed cost is being used to deliver this program. It's also time, someone's time, and someone's time is money. It could be used better elsewhere. So you need to account for this person's time in your budget as well. Again, in the next session, we will talk specifically about how this is done. We whiz through the principles of budgeting, why and what, and now I'm going to give a very simple example about how it is done. And in the end, I provide reference to some books and other documents that can help you understand better how this is done. Again, this is just a very brief overview. If you want me to work on specific develop more specific examples, whatever, just leave a note on the comments, and I'll be very happy to write a blog post or make another video about those examples. So moving on. Let's imagine, for the sake of example, completely just an example, that the organization objective is to improve profitability. Okay, we want to improve profitability because we think we need to cut some costs. We can't be so dependent on margins. We want to improve our margins, and that has been reported to you as a marketing manager, and you decide, after some analysis, that the first priority should be really, as a marketing objective, to improve customer retention. So from your studies or your experience, that the key to customer retention is customer satisfaction. So the next thing you'll do is do some sort of internal market research, look at some satisfaction surveys to understand what are the key drivers of satisfaction and dissatisfaction among your customers. Again, this is just an hypothetical example, a very, very simple one. Let's imagine that when developing this marketing program, the customer survey told you that actually customers are very, very happy with your product and they think the price is okay. No, they don't. There is no negative comments about price, and they're usually happy with product. What customers really, really complain about is customer service. They're not happy, and they both complain in the survey, but this matches also some information you had from your sales staff, and you have some recordings of call centers, and people are always complaining. So you've analyzed your data, and you concluded that there are three kind of sources of problems. Again, all hypothetical, just for the sake of this example. And so your customers usually complain about sales materials, that they are very confused, they don't provide detail, that sometimes you go on the website, you find something, you go on the leaflet and you find something else, and when you go to the shop, there is confusing, even more different information. So sales materials are very confusing, and they are not consistent across your channels. They also complain about customer support. They're always having problems using our product, and they need to call, and then it takes a long time to provide relevant answers. And lately, they've been complaining about inventory management, that we seem to be running out of, either a part or a model or a color. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's just an example. So you identify that these are the three key areas that need to be addressed. So then the next step would be to start brainstorming on specific actions that you could take to deliver this marketing program. So remember, your objective is to improve retention. You realize that your program needs to be around improving satisfaction. The key sources of problems are sales materials, inventory management, and customer support. So now you start identifying specific actions that you can take to solve these problems and therefore improve customer service. So you go for each of these areas and you start listing possible actions. So this is just examples, again, completely, I don't know any company that had to deal this. It's just things that you might decide to do. First, you might want, in terms of sales material, really what is it that customers would like to have on our website or on our leaflets that we currently are not providing. So once we identify what are the needs, so we do a bit of customer research. So we need to do a bit of customer research here. After that, we need to revise some existing material, our materials vis-a-vis those requirements, which ones are meeting the requirements, which aren't. Develop new materials. Once we develop materials, we need to make sure that the information is consistent, right? So for instance, that maybe we need to update the website to make sure it contains all the the revised information. Then we need to train our our sales force, people in our shops or our representatives, our agents, train them on the new information that we have added to the website and to the leaflets. Maybe even customer support staff, so if people call with a question, they have the most recent materials with them. Anyway, many other actions could be possible. In terms of improving customer support, maybe actually we need to start by improving the instructions on the packaging, because if our packaging has better instructions, if the instructions are improved, then there'll be less need to call us. Maybe customers don't even want to call us first. Maybe the first thing they do is go on the website. So we need to improve the help pages on the website, the frequently asked questions page on the website. Maybe we can also create a forum on the website or on Facebook page for customers to help each other. Or even if it's not customers, maybe we can have one of our members of staff checking 24 hours and answering questions. Web chat, whatever. We also, of course, need to integrate customer databases so that when the customer calls us, we have the most updated information. We know exactly which model the customer has, if this is a new problem or a recurrent problem, and you can provide answers that are much more customized to our customer, that are relevant to our customer. Once we integrate the customer databases, we need to make sure that staff that deal with customers have access to relevant data. This could be data about what the customer has bought, but also data about the customer value, for instance, and any comments we may have about how important this customer is for us and how important it is to retain them. We want to develop a unified process to deal with customers in key accounts. So we will somehow prioritize our customers and develop different processes for different levels of customers. We'll want to train customer-facing staff and so on. In terms of inventory management, so maybe we need to start by improving knowledge sharing within the organization. So it's all about internal marketing and information systems. We want to know about production schedules, how long it takes to produce something, so we're not promising to sell to our customers something that is not produced yet. Maybe we want to know about problems with the supplier that we might be having, and therefore we are not able to provide the blue model of whatever product we sell. Let's take it out of our website, for instance. We want to share customer insights across the organization, what are the most popular models and so on. We also want to develop better models of consumer behavior so we can start anticipating when the customer will want to replace the product, when something is likely to be broken, what are the most popular models or sizes or colors, and so on, so we can predict things better and even out the supply, the inventory, so we have less problems. So we'll go brainstorming for each of these. We'll brainstorm specific actions. So you'll see that, in order to deliver the benefit of improving customer support, we realize that one of the actions is improving packaging instructions. And this action is dependent on a number of other enabling actions. For instance, I need to check the regulations, things that I need to put on my package. I need to select a design company to change the packaging. I need to produce new leaflets or maybe new boxes. I need to replace the existing boxes and so on. There are a broad range of actions. So once I identify all of these actions, I need to start putting values onto them. So I have on the left-hand column the direct action, then we have the enabling actions that make the direct action possible. I need to identify who is responsible for that action. So for instance, checking regulation will be done by the legal department. So it's not all, it shows here, for instance, that not all, some of the actions for the marketing program are dependent on other departments. They're not all carried out by the marketing department. So this one here needs the cooperation of the legal department. When is this due? Well, this is due, for instance, by week 3. I need to have these regulations in place for everything to happen. How often is this done? Well, this is only done once in the project. this is important for us because we know if the cost is only likely to occur once, or every 2 weeks, or every 6 months, and so on. So what's the metric? When do I know that this has been done? Well, I know this has been done because I get the approval, so I can kind of move on and to the next task, and whether this cost is internal or external. So you may remember earlier when we was talking about resources, I talked about someone's time. Well, this is an example of an internal cost, right? If the legal department is busy checking the regulations for me, they're not doing something else. They might need to recruit someone new. So I need to acknowledge this cost. This is a cost of my marketing action, of my marketing program, and I need to put a figure here, which would be, there will be a metric of how much it costs the member of the legal department, how much its value per hour, how many hours I think it's going to take. It's going to, imagine it's £100 per hour, it's going to take me 5 hours, so I put a cost here of £500, for instance. Or external, if I'm going to use a lawyer, I'll put the cost in external. But even if it's internal, you need to acknowledge, and there is no money being exchanged, you will still need to acknowledge the cost. So you'll do you'll do the similar exercise for all of the other tasks. So the one select design company will be done by the creative director, which is a member of the marketing department, right? So this one is directly controlled by the marketing department, but not all actions are directly controlled by the marketing department. And this may create things like in terms of risk and so on. And that's why it's even more important to develop a budget, because then it's easier for me to talk with my colleagues on the legal department of why I need this action taken by a certain date and how it relates to everything else. So that's another benefit of having budgets. It's to help you communicate with other colleagues in the organization that are not in the marketing department and may not understand exactly why you want to check the regulations and why it's important ultimately for profitability. But moving on to the next slide. So once you've done this for all actions, we want to capture really this link between costs and benefits, right? The thing, a budget is all about causes and effects. I take a range of actions that will generate a particular effect, a benefit that I'm expecting. So I'm starting from a point 0, so the current level of satisfaction, which is poor. I plan to implement a number of actions, and then I hope to create a desired level of customer satisfaction. And remember, I'll have lots and lots of actions to try and improve satisfaction along these 3 dimensions of sales materials, inventory management, and customer support. Now, what happens? So how do I then quantify this? So looking at this slide here, how do I quantify the jump between current level and desired level? How do I quantify the benefit of improving the information on the package, for instance, or the benefit of providing training, right? Well, it depends, really. There are many ways. You may do some market research called causal market research. So you talk with your customer, say, if the box shows this kind of information, by how much does your satisfaction level change, right? So you look at different satisfaction you give them various samples and how happy they are with them. Sometimes it could be historical transaction data, so you realize that every time you gave these information, for instance, when you're looking at information that customers need, you know that customers are really happy with the information on the website. They never ask questions, okay? So this gives you that this is the information they need, whereas they're always complaining about the information on the shops, or vice versa. Actually, it's more likely to be the opposite, that they're really happy with the information on the shops, but they're always complaining about the website, for instance. Sometimes you may develop models, based on, or you may have theories about the links, and so theories may come from research, but if possible, I would always encourage you to pilot whether these theories apply to you, but sometimes you can't. It's a completely new product, you can't really test it, so there are theories about how much the satisfaction will improve, and therefore how much retention will improve. By the way, these examples here, these pictures here I got completely out of the internet. I have no idea what they are. It's just to illustrate the idea of models and theories. If this is your picture and you don't want me to use it, just let me know and I'll replace it. Okay, so moving on, we're talking about linking the costs and the benefits. So Let me just revise it quickly, very quickly here. We identified a series of actions that can be taken, that we could take to improve. We put some names and frequencies and numbers to each of these actions, and then now we're finding the quantifying by how taking these actions, how much this translates in improved customer satisfaction, right? How much the customer satisfaction will improve if I take each of these actions. So what happens is, of course, we have very limited resources, right? We don't have all the money in the world. We don't have all the time in the world. We need to prioritize action. So what am I going to do first? Am I going to start by improving the sales materials? Am I going to start by improving inventory management? Am I going to start by improving customer support? You need to decide. Now, this depends, which ones you prioritize depends on a number of factors, and it will vary by organization. So maybe you have a limited budget. You have a limit on how much you can spend, and therefore, for instance, you cannot go and develop new package. You need to just improve what you have already. So improve the website is much cheaper than develop a completely new packaging. Sometimes you want something that will produce results very, very quickly, and then maybe changing the website will produce results much more quickly than changing the packaging. So it depends what is the priority in your organization. Sometimes you may have long-standing contracts, and even though you would like to change, for instance, you would like to integrate databases, but you have a contract, whatever, and you can't integrate the systems. You need to work around the systems that you have, as opposed to buying a completely new marketing information system. Sometimes it has to do with internal skills. Maybe you don't have the skills to do that, and you don't want to outsource it. Because an example here, a clear example here is Apple, for instance. Apple is very conscious, is very worried about industrial espionage and people leaks about new products. So they try to bring the resources in-house as much as possible. And when they are developing new features, they try to bring the resources in-house as much as possible. So if you don't have the skills and you can't acquire them, you may decide not to pursue a certain marketing program and invest in another one. So the idea here is that you have a range of possible actions that produce a range of possible benefits, but you don't have you have limited time and you have limited money, so you need to decide which actions you're going to focus on. And this could be depending on how much they cost or how much they contribute to the desired benefits. It's very important to think about really that whenever we put money in one option, there is the cost of opportunity of option B. So if I decide to spend my money and time improving sales materials, I may not have the money and the time to improve my customer support. So there's always a choice, right? There's a cost of choice. When I decide to do something, I'm always deciding not to do something else. And there is a cost to that, and I need to compare. So which of those actions produces the best result? So it's imagine that my constraint is that I want very quick results. So even if action A delivers more satisfaction, but it would take 2 years, and action B delivers more satisfaction in 2 months, I may go for customer option B because that would my criteria, for example. And the other issue I'd like to highlight is that really change happens, things keep changing, so you need to keep revising. Yes, maybe when you started developing the budget, you assumed that there was no competitor, and now suddenly the laws changed and the market is no longer protected and you have new competitors. So you need to keep revisiting your budget and adjusting it to what is happening in the market. So this is my very quick overview. I would just like to finish by sharing some resources that may be useful to you. One of them is the book Marketing Accountability. I've reviewed this book on my website. There is the link for the review. It talks about really the subtitle says it all. It's about measuring marketing effectiveness, and it has a really good discussion about how we link marketing investments with marketing benefits and the costs and the expenses. And there is a section on budgeting as well with some interesting templates. The other book that may be of interest to you is How to Measure Anything. Oh, by the way, I have absolutely no commercial interest in any of these books. I'm just suggesting because they might be interesting for you. I have no affiliate link. But going back to the book on How to Measure Anything, it's an interesting book about putting money. So sometimes we may find it difficult to say, but how do you measure satisfaction? How much is satisfaction worth in terms of revenues? And this book is really interesting about those things. How do you value intangibles? How do you value soft concepts like satisfaction, trust, and so on. And of course, in addition to these books, if you want to understand those models that measure the impact of causes, causes and that link causes and effects, and tell you how much a change in the price would lead to a change in revenues, or how much to what extent a change in sales material will lead to a change in customer satisfaction, then I'm afraid you will need to engage with marketing research, not in terms of marketing research studies like surveys, but the ones that are produced in universities and so on, and that I try to distill here on the website. So that is all really. It's my very, very brief introduction to budgeting for marketers. Please, if you like the presentation, please like this blog post or leave a comment down on the blog about, what you thought about it. Give me your examples, tell me things you don't understand and that you'd like me to clarify. And if you do decide to use the presentation, the content or something, you're very welcome, as I said, but if you could leave me a comment, that would be wonderful. So have a lovely day. Thank you.